Hi, Belle. Just watched your video with your new little cutie pie. And, yeah, good job. You definitely have every reason to be excited. I think that was super productive for the first time. 7-year-olds are really, really tricky, no matter what. So you did really well. Right off the bat, though, on your time clip, at 20 minutes is when he started getting a little dysregulated, which is totally normal. And I would, stick with those 30-minute sessions for a while, and halfway through give him a good 3-ish minute break. You were letting him roam and do whatever and sensory input and stuff, so that was good. But just really kind of set your expectations, the goal at the beginning of the session, and say, I think for him and how busy his body was and how much you could tell he was really working hard and struggling for that control, I would just say 2 words after each chunk and then start reading again. Do that for a few sessions and then maybe do a 3rd word, but just say, hey Sage, we're gonna do 30 minutes of work. You get a good break halfway, plenty of breaks when I read, do what you want, stay in the room. And we're just gonna spell 2 words in between each chunk, and then you get a break. I would definitely cover half the board because his motor is so tricky. Also try not to touch his arm when he's kind of mispoking and stuff. Instead of physically touching it, you can prompt it, like arm back down, reset on your lap, and then arm up, go. I loved the super low tone and your prompting. I even think I would cover half the board and try the sensory board, since he seemed to use that pencil as a dart. It's tough because when I have prompted bodies that are that tricky, I feel like I do kind of like, all right, you got it, get it, like eyes on it and go. But I think some of your prompts, you were kind of repeating almost like a little too much. So instead of saying like the same, like, okay, go get it and poke, go get it and poke, go get it and poke, like eyes on it, go. Or look for it, and just try and think of a few other things so it's not that same phrase over and over. Oh yeah, and with kiddos that age and that busy of bodies too, sometimes I even just say like, all right, we're spelling the word remember, but just give me the first 4 letters and we'll move on to the next one. Just again to kind of promote that success and have them feel good. Small, attainable goals. I would scoot him back a little bit more so he has that full range. I'd also drop the board a little bit. He kind of was lifting up with his shoulder some. You want the board like pretty close to his knee, so when he pokes out, it's just that natural out and down a little bit. I'm not sure if I saw the beginning of the session, but remember to start with spells. That's another thing that I'm kind of contradicting myself because I'm very a stickler when it comes to spells being warm-up only, but this would be one of those cases where I would say you might have to do a little more spells throughout the entire session, just to, very low motor, low cog, all that, just while he's getting going and feeling out the movements and all that. So yeah, maybe instead of 5 minutes of spell onlys, do 15, and then do 1 green, 1 spell, 1 green, 1 spell. I liked when you kind of, held his arm down and said, look, eyes on the board, look for it. But again, instead of that actual physical touch, I would just hover your hand over it, and that's when I kind of would say like, hey, I'm just gonna hover my hand here. I want your arm on your lap. I want to see you look for that letter, find it, and then I lift my hand up and say go. Great body coaching, again, back to the table. And then I noted that if you try to use the pencil again to poke, which I kind of want to see a video with just sensory boards and fingers, but if or when you do continue the pencil, be really mindful of the grip. I think he was kind of like, I don't know, it was wonky. So keep an eye on that, keep adjusting the grip. But yes, overall, amazing. I know that was a lot of tips, but there were also a lot of positives. So keep it up and just modify it a little bit more with him. You know, more spells, cover half the board, sensory, a lot of movement breaks, which you already were doing. And for some of those longer words, if you need to, just say, we're gonna do the first 4 letters. Like, I know you know how to spell it. I'm not testing your spelling, but I just wanna get as much practice in as possible and you to stay as regulated as possible. And what were some of your questions real quick? Yeah, the unreliable speech is really hard, especially when they cry and scream. But you did really well. And if you ever feel like you are being rude, that's kind of when I just say like, hey bud, I'm not ignoring you to be mean or rude. I just know that that is unreliable. And, you know, sometimes I've had guys who are like, what time is it? What time is it? What time is it? And I'll answer it a couple times. And then once they keep asking, which they don't want to do, I'll just say, you know, I know you know the answer, or I'll like point to the clock. But I'm not gonna say it again, and it's not to be rude or mean. And then the crying is tough to, you know, the more and more you work with him, you'll get to know, but sometimes the crying is the complete opposite. You know, insides don't match the outsides, and he could have just been so excited that he was finally working with someone who is talking to him like a 7-year-old that understands the world around him and asking him to do age-appropriate things. I've had a lot of clients who are open, and when they're crying or hitting their head against the wall or biting themselves, they typically are just like, keep going, I'm fine. And then the opposite, sometimes when they're super giggly or smiley or whatever, they end up saying like, I'm freaking out, I need a break. Not that it's always the complete opposite, but it typically is, because of those insides don't match the outsides. Continue to work alone. Yeah, definitely. If you have noticed that when the parents are by, if it's a little cuckoo, I would say like, hey, I know you want to be in the room, but blame it on me. Like, my mentor needs to see me coaching him and supporting him without your help or your input or comments or judginess. Just say like, I'm gonna record it and I'll send it to you, and you can ask me whatever questions you want, and eventually I'll start coaching you. But right now, while I'm getting to know him and we're building our relationship, it's best that it's just him and I in a closed room. And yeah, great, you know, with the crying and the whimpering, you did well. Sorry, my friend's dad is screaming outside. You did well, you know, ignoring it and not acknowledging it too much, and keep on spelling. But again, he's 7, and it was towards the end of his session, so he could have just hit his limit. You know, you're building your endurance with each one of these sessions. And I think that's it. Let me know if you have any questions.